All right. Good evening, everybody. I see people are beginning to log in. That's good. Welcome, welcome. As you log in, I know it'll take probably a few minutes for everybody to log in. Why don't you go ahead and open up your chat bar there? If you click on chat at the bottom of your screen, we're all getting really familiar with Zoom. You can log in and just tell us where you're from. Hey, we see Ron's there. From an undisclosed location around the globe. And so go ahead and use the chat bar and tell us. You might have to click on the guidelines there in your chat bar so that everyone can see. I've done that, but tell us where you're from. And there you go, Susan from Happy Valley. Susan Jones, how are you? Good. Go ahead and throw those in there, and we're going to kind of dive right in here. So people will continue to log in, I'm sure, and they remember that it's 5 o'clock. Bonetta, how are you? Good to see you. Guess I can't see you, but so anyway, welcome to our budget workshop webinar. We're glad you're here, whether you're here from Manna House, one of our campuses, or you just found out about it some other way. Either way, we're glad you're here. And so I want to make sure you use the chat feature. Let us know if you have questions. Definitely as we go through the material, because we're going to have a time at the end for Q&A, questions and answers. And that's where you'll type in your questions and I'll kind of moderate through those. So at any point, if you have a question, type it in there and we'll watch for it. I've got some friends here that I'll introduce if you don't recognize them in just a minute. But I wanted just to give you a quick overview, kind of what our intention was. For those of you that are a part of Manna House, you know that we're in the middle of a series called Worth It, and kind of looking at our finances and looking at generosity as part of Season of Generosity and the idea of living life in light of eternity. And this past weekend, this past Sunday, looked at the idea of building a solid foundation. And we strategically scheduled this webinar kind of right after that to continue the conversation. And we want to put some real basic tools and concepts and ideas in your hands, but more than anything, just maybe hopefully stir a conversation in your life and in your home and give you something that maybe you can build upon. So we'll go through that. We're going to have, we'll watch a video together of the training. And then, like I said, at the end of that, we'll have Q&A. So as we go into that, I want to introduce who's with us here. First off, we have Ron Wilkenson. You want to say a quick word, Ron?
I sure do. I just want to say hi and know that budgeting is just the first step and the foundation that can help you to financial freedom.
Come on, so good. We also have with us Brian Feeney. Why don't you say a couple of words, Brian?
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm one of the pastors here at Manna House. I serve on our financial stewardship team and in my career work in cybersecurity in a leadership role. So budgeting and financial stewardship has always been important to me and my wife for the past 21 years of marriage, and look forward to this event tonight. Thanks for joining again.
Awesome. And AZ Suarez.
AZ.
Yeah, so happy to be here with everyone. I'm the church finance administrator, and I oversee the finance team and the human resources department. And I work with the financial structure of the church, practices, policies, and it's great to work for the church in that area. And on the side, my wife and I own a couple of businesses that we run, and we've been married for 15 years. I love coffee, I love soccer, drumming, motorcycle riding, long walks on a warm beach, and balancing my checkbook. So there's that for you.
You mean long walks on cold beaches? You live in the Pacific Northwest.
I do like that, but I prefer warm beaches, yeah.
AZ, come on down to Cabo.
Let's do it.
I said an undisclosed location, Ron.
We're here now.
He gave it up in the chat.
We have room.
Awesome. Well, I see people are continuing to log in. Good. If you're just now joining us, we're glad you're here. Just going through some initial information, introductions, and that sort of thing. And we're gonna kick things off just to get you guys. I know you guys, most of you went to work today and had a busy full day. So we're gonna kind of kick things off with some fun first. So AZ is gonna lead us in a bit of a fun game here. So get ready to type, and AZ will fill you in on what to do.
Yeah, get your fingers ready. I have a simple game for us to play and participate. And there's actually there's money on the table. There was a gift card that Jason's going to be sending out to the winners. We will have 3 winners today, and so just in time for Thanksgiving, Christmas coming up. So here we go. So I'm going to put 3 words on the screen, and you'll be able to see what they have. You'll need to tell us what they have in common. So here's the first one for you. Penny Ford Motor Company in Nebraska. So if you know the answer to that, type it in. I was going to say shout it out, but I can't hear you. So let's see what we got here.
You might have stumped him, AZ.
I just might have. Oh, Michelle.
Wait a minute. Boom. Michelle Biddle. Come on.
Let's go. That's so good. Well done. So we got our first winner. Here's the second one. We got themed one here. We got pumpkins, turkeys, and initials. What do these 3 have in common? Let's see here. Brian, golf is great here. That's
Sorry. I thought I was just going to Brian.
That's the wrong answer, Ron.
Yeah. So pumpkins, turkeys, and initials. Let's see. Oh, the answer for the first one, by the way, was Lincoln, in case you missed that one. So pumpkin, turkeys, and initials. Jason,
Lincoln.
you want to go for it?
Lincoln's on the penny, Lincoln Continentals, Ford Motor Company, and Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah. What about pumpkins, turkeys, and initials? I think that everybody's thinking about turkeys, so it's probably
That's a great guess, Abner, but if you're the only one that types it in, we're going to give it to you.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to just throw a guess out there?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to give that one to Abner.
There you go.
But the correct answer was carbs.
Carbs. Yeah.
You carve a pumpkin, you carve a turkey, and you carve your initials into a 3.
All right. Here's the third one and last one, and hopefully you guys are having a good time with this. Baseball glove, pool table, and jeans. What do they all have in common? Pockets.
James,
Nailed it.
you got it right.
That's
Outstanding.
good.
James V from Vancouver. The Couve. Let's go.
Awesome. The correct answer from James was pockets. Pocket of a baseball glove. Pool table's got pockets, and so does your jeans. Awesome. I will get those. I'll communicate to you guys probably tomorrow morning. Get those out to you. Congratulations. Thanks for participating. Awesome. Well, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen, play the video, and as you guys have questions, even while the video is playing, go ahead and throw those in the chat bar, and we'll see those. And then when we come back, we'll just have a bit of a discussion about budgeting and how you can start it, how you can resurrect it, and how you can improve it. So here we go.
Hi, I'm Ron Wilkenson. I'm a certified financial planner, and I'm here today to talk to you about a budget. My wife usually calls them a spending plan because she doesn't think they're limited. And we just want you to know that you need to keep track of it, even if it is unlimited. So we're going to talk about budgeting 101 today, what that really looks like to create a personal budget. So money history, it's a basic proposition. Money is one of the strongest secular forces in our world. And if you don't believe that, just look at the messages we get from Christmas or from current news even about encouraging people to spend money. How many of you have been looking at Amazon ads? How many of you have been looking at Walmart ads? Any of those. They all are trying to get you to spend. And the idea being is that we need to be careful about how we allocate and how we become stewards. So financial skills are a 21st century skill, and we need to have them. So the 3 basic rules of financial planning that I always talk about is save more, spend less, and don't do anything stupid. There are times when we have impulse buying, and that's when I talk about don't doing anything stupid. The idea here is that Luke 14:28 asks us, for which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, and whether he may have enough to finish it? I think we ought to say he or she, because there's a lot of women that are controlling the purse strings these days. Interestingly enough, is how God manages to put together husband and wives that one of them's got a better strength and better head for numbers. So what is a budget? Nothing more than a written record of the money that flows in and out of your household every month. You notice I didn't say in and out of your bank account. Oh, that's where a lot of it happens. It's in and out of your household. It's amazing. Take back, a bag of cans in the green bag. Hey, there's some money, That's great. A way to earn a little bit extra. So why budget? Budgeting, the first step, in my opinion, on the road to financial success. Keeping track of what's going on and knowing where your dollars are going. You don't have to know every cent or every dime that's going out. At the same time, you should have a general sense of how much is being spent where. So controlling your day-to-day finances allow you to do the things you want to do most. I recently had a fairly affluent individual who's a news anchor for an entity back east that just said, I feel so guilty that I'm not saving enough. I'm not doing enough. I don't have my kids' college fund done yet. And we seem to always be broke and making a very, very good income. Well, I told her, you shouldn't feel guilty until you know what your goals are and what needs to fund those goals. So that's the idea of having a budget, knowing what has to go into what category in order to fund your goals. And we'll talk more about categories and goals in a little bit. So balancing your income and expenses, pretty basic, eh? So starting your budget now, don't wait till you're financially on your feet to do a budget. You need to start and know what's going on now. You'll find that it's actually empowering to do that. And a budget's nothing more than an activity of balancing the income and expenses and knowing what's going on. I'm going to hit on that a lot. So how to start? Well, if you haven't budgeted before, at this point, you don't have a good idea where your money's going. I can almost guarantee that. So for the next month, write everything down. What are you spending money on? And anytime you receive money. It's nothing more than a tracking guide. How much, looking at the balance of your money. What was the rent, paycheck? I know people are going $250 for rent. Where is that person living, right? And the paycheck, $887. Well, hopefully they're making more than that. But there are people that are not doing that. One of the things that's not on here that I talk about a lot is that one of the first things that needs to be in your budget is tithe, giving back to God. And then you can save for yourself, and then the rest is used to live on. So once you've started tracking it, we're going to create a personal budget. Nothing more than that. Tracking expenses, allocating to a category, those different things, food, eating out, movies. Curiosity in this time that we're facing right now, a lot of us are watching Netflix or Hulu or any number of different services. And it just seems like every time you turn around, if you want to watch a different show, you have to go to a different subscription service. Oh, and it's only $5.99 a month. Well, those add up. So if you continue to do that, all of a sudden it's $40, $50, $60, and you've already have probably DirecTV or Comcast or Dish Network, and all of a sudden you're spending over $200 a month just on your video watching, on streaming. So figure out the amount of money you're spending and what do you have to spend and what are you spending money on that's not a necessity. 2 types of expenses. Essential expenses that you have to live, and non-essentials, the don't-haves. Now, my wife feels like dog food and pet supplies is essential. To me, pets can be variable and not necessarily something you have to have. Now, that'll probably get me a lot of hate mail, but I'm just saying that my wife has already put it in the essential category, and I have acquiesced to that. Happy wife, happy life. So essential fixed expenses, more like tithe, your mortgage or your rent, insurance, auto, home, life insurance, health insurances, car payments. If you have a car payment, this is an essential. Most people need a vehicle or some kind of transportation to get to and from work. Although with more of us working from home right now, maybe that's not so much the case. Taxes. Oh my gosh, do not get behind on your taxes. Federal or state. Federal, not so much as in terms of being mean to you, but the state, if you live in the state of Oregon, they will come after you. School loans, also important. One of the things I've heard recently is that, school loans can be put in abeyance for a while. If you can afford to, don't do that. Continue to pay them. They're gonna be around for a long time if you don't. So variable expenses, car maintenance. I have some friends that are very, very diligent about making sure their oil gets changed every 3,000 miles. Well, that's probably not necessary. With the new oils and stuff, 5,000 to 6,000 miles, and if you go to synthetics, it's 25,000 to 30,000 miles. My point being is that you can manage that. Gas, where you're driving, make a list of where you're going. If you're going like Costco, and then you're going to go to get gas, and you're going to get someplace else, you're going to go to pick up clothing or something, make sure you're not making several trips out. Make one trip. Use your head. Food. A lot of people right now are eating organically. Is it necessary? In some people's cases, yes, I'm going to argue it is. But the idea being is that food is one of those areas that you can go up and down in. Electricity and heat, put on a jacket. Or if you're too hot, well, you can take off down to at least a t-shirt and jeans. Phones. Oh my gosh, phones. It seems like in our family, even the 8-year-old has a phone. And I'm going, what's the rationale behind that? Well, I turned out later to find out they don't have a plan. They're on Wi-Fi, and that's all it's being used for. It's not being used with a regular phone plan. But be careful with the phones. Those plans can be expensive. And shop them once in a while. You can get less expensive costs. Non-essential expenses. Now, the clothing may or may not be, depending on your profession, depending on when you're working. If you have to have safety shoes, if you have to have eyeglasses, those kinds of things. You have to dress professionally for your work. Then clothes are a necessity. But be smart in how you do it. And this is not a class on how to do that, but pick things to mix and match on a regular basis. Books. I have another client that his book budget is $800 a month. He's just a professional reader. I don't know how he gets through all that, but that's what he's spending. Movies, definitely a non-essential expense. Video games, again, the online streaming games, seeing people spend hundreds of dollars a month, especially when they're buying or leveling up. So be careful of that kind of thing. It can get in the way. Other items you want but don't need. So there's the big key thing. Wants versus needs. And be honest with yourself about what those are. So categories and some possible expense categories. Pretty simply put, housing, electricity, insurance, food. So you see the list here, prescriptions. I think prescriptions are essential. Insurance, toiletries, loans, magazine subscriptions. You should be able to negotiate those out of airline miles, I would think. Internet, medical bills, sundries, pet food. Again, we've talked about that. Gym memberships. Some people feel like those are really, really important. And I do agree that health is important. So if we're balancing your income and expenses, at the end of the month, break down everything into categories. Is your income greater than your expenses? Great. Then you can save some money, or you can give more into offerings. No, then we have a problem, and we need to figure out what that problem is. So expenses, if they're greater than your income, very simply put, what can I cut out? Eating out too often? I would consider Grubhub or DoorDash eating out. Just a small clarification there. Buying things you don't need. National averages for budget categories. A lot of people ask me about this. So for a family of 4, if you have a $60,000 income, or in this case, we're going to talk about $60,000 of expenses, housing running about almost $20,000 annually. This is from 2017. So about 33% of the household budget. And I see that hold true in almost all income categories. About 30 to 40% of the household income is going to housing. Transportation, getting back and forth to work, going on vacations, those kinds of things. Almost $10,000 a year. It seems like a lot, but it's true. This one here might surprise you. $7,700 for food for a family of 4. If you break that down, I mean, that's several $100s a month. I found that on the national average, it's anywhere from $150 to $250 per person per month, depending on how much you eat in and eat out and what you're buying for your foodstuffs. Personal insurance and pensions, 401k. To me, this is really low. I think it ought to be more like 15% of income, not 11.3. We need to save more. When we talk about personal insurance, what we're really talking about is like life insurance, or if you have to pay for your own dental, that kind of thing. That's exactly what we're looking at there. Healthcare, there's the more the medical insurances out there. Although I have to say that I'm working with some retirees right now that are facing, they're not quite into Medicare age, and they're facing $1,000 a month for a couple for health insurance. It's not cheap. Entertainment. This isn't bad. $3,200 a year, less than $300 a month. That's not horrible. Miscellaneous and discretionary personal items. Any number of things could fit into that category, but about $200 a month. This is for a whole family of 4, though. Remember that. Cash contributions. So what's being given to church? What's being given to charity? Sadly, 3%. And this holds true. I do other talks on giving and legacy, and it's true. We only give as a nation about 3% of our income, and we ought to be giving 10 to God at the very least, and offerings over and above that. Apparel and services, $1,800 a year. I've seen that abused a lot. Clothing can be a real downfall for some families. It really can. For me, as a granddad, my wife as a grandmother, and we've got 15 grandkids, half of them are girls. And do you know how much patent leather shoes cost? They're not cheap. And these little dresses for Easter, for Christmas, for Thanksgiving, anyway, it adds up. More than that $1,800, I'll tell you. Education. We should all be lifelong learners, but we're talking about an average family of 4 here being about $1,500 a year. So not a lot. Personal care. How many of you have gone out and gotten a haircut? The guys, you're probably figuring, what, $30 with a tip? $25 to $30? What does it take for a lady to go get her hair trimmed and colored? I happen to know the answer to that. Somewhere between $180 and $250 a visit. That's going to blow that budget out of the water, I can tell you that, especially if that's a monthly thing. So a monthly income for this family of 4 was $60,000. These don't have to hold true for everybody, but I want you to know these are averages and that it gives you kind of a guideline. I just would like to see the main one I'd like to see, 2 main ones I'd like to see increased here is putting away for your future and putting away for God. So budgeting tips. Here's the proverbial white napkin. And you look at your calendar, you kind of put down step 1, set your goals. What about your earnings? What about expenses? What am I going to keep overall? And then down, pay when find when you can cut back if you need to. So 50% is typically essentials, 30% flexible, and 20% to your financial goals. This is a good visual to talk to you about how to do that. So identifying problems. Identify shortfalls by looking ahead. That's one of the things that a budget or a spending plan will do for you, is being able to avoid costly mistakes. How many know, like in Oregon, your property taxes are due in November. In Washington, they're due in April and October. Are you planning for that? Or is all of a sudden you get this chunk that's got to go out? Some of you are fortunate, maybe you put your property taxes in your house payment. Homeowners insurance the same way. Car insurance, are you paying it monthly? Are you paying it quarterly? Are you paying it semi-annually? What's the best and cheapest way to do it? And can you personally be disciplined enough to put money away for that into a budget category? One of the things that I was, when working with one widow who had never handled money before, couldn't understand why she was always running out of money when she had a fair income. Her overdraft charges alone at $35 a pop were over $800 a month. I mean, that's a big number just going to the bank to pay for what? For an overdraft charge? We fixed that pretty fast. Late fees. Again, credit cards, they hit you for a 15% late fee. So does homeowners, your mortgage payment. So you don't want to have to deal with that. You don't want 30-day lates. Try to manage yourself so that you can not have those late fees. Finance charges. Oh my gosh. Let's talk about credit cards. If you've got a credit card, and even if it's a great credit card at 9, 10, 11, 12%, and all of a sudden you're late, it bumps up. If you're late again, it bumps up again. I've seen them as high as 29% interest. That's just incredible. And to me, that's just money down a rat hole. So be careful of finance charges. How much of an emergency fund to have? What I've seen people need, if they don't have a very stable job, is 6 months of reserves put away, of needs income, of needs expenses. And on top of the needs expenses of food and gas and those kinds of things, I'd also like to see an insurance deductible. So if you've got a car and you have an accident, if you have a $500 deductible, that ought to be put away into an emergency fund as well. If you have a more stable job, 3 months should be fine. And I've seen that be okay. Usually within 90 days, things stabilize. So why do budgets fail? Well, one is, I can't control this. People have a negative attitude. They have an attitude it's just a losing attitude. A lack of motivation. Well, I have to admit, it can be daunting to have to sit down and keep track of all this. I personally, and I know I'm a numbers guy, and I know it's what I do for a living in terms of numbers, but I probably spend anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a week just keeping things updated. Now, if you have it set up correctly and you have some auto payments done and you've done some leveling of your expenses for gas and electric bills, maybe you could put it off to once a month. But I tell you, you want to make sure that you keep on top of it. And the motivation should be to get ahead. And the motivation should be, hey, I'm being a good steward of what I've been given. Unrealistic expectations. Oh, I can get a hold of this, I can do it in a week. No, I'm going to tell you, it's going to take time and practice in order to learn the skills, in order to have a great methodology for keeping track of where your money's going. And I keep talking about your money, but reality is, from my standpoint, God owns it all, and it's His money, and that's what we're being a steward of, is His money. Not understanding how money works. This is a bigger area than most people realize. One of the things, if you have a small business, what's deductible, what's not? What can I include in my small business, what's not? How do I deal with a client that was needing to get some money out to finalize a transaction to buy a home? They took the money out of their IRA, did not realize they had to have it back within 60 days. When you all of a sudden get a tax bill for $50,000 for the down payment you took out for this house, you're going to scream, because it's not going to be cheap. So understanding that what the rules are about different money and money pockets is really important. You're almost better off not to put the money in and keep it in a reserve than to put the money in and have to pay a penalty. There's so many areas around tax planning and around retirement planning, those kinds of things, that you need to get some help and talk to people. From my standpoint, professional expertise doesn't cost, it pays. So it really does make a difference to find out what you should be doing with your dollars and where to put it, those kinds of things. One of the things, another area in that area is in the investing area. Are you paying too much for where you're putting your money? Are you paying a commission? That's fine, but are you paying too much of a commission? Have you negotiated at all? Buying a house, have you even asked to get a lower commission from the real estate agent? It doesn't hurt to ask. Most people are embarrassed about that, but reality is if you don't ask, you don't get. So from my standpoint, learning how money works is one of the key areas of making your budget succeed. So how to save? We've been talking about this all along. Tithe. Then pay yourself. I'm reiterating this from an earlier slide. Automatic transfers. Oh my gosh, it's so much easier if you have something going automatically out of your paycheck or out of your bank account to take care of things. Then you know you're not going to have a late fee, number one. Number two, you're putting money away for yourself for a retirement plan. Or even if it's not a retirement plan, maybe it's just building your reserves. If you have that automatically transferred from your checking to your savings every month or every payday, then it can work. Take advantage. I was talking about taking advantage of your employer's retirement plan. Most people don't understand a lot of the retirement plans, if you'll put in 4 or 5%, they'll match 3, 4, 5%. That's free money. If you put in 4% and get a 4% match, that's 100% rate of return. You can't beat that in the market. So make that happen. Another idea here is in how to save is keep track of the expenses you've got going on for your auto kind of thing. Can you get a better deal for your oil changes? Coupons. That's kind of where I was going with that. What can I use coupons for? I'm not above using coupons. They're great. Been able to do a lot of things using Groupon. And don't forget, quick and easy way is just toss some spare change into a jar or piggy bank. I'm guilty of that, and right now I am going to just confess that I've got to get to the bank because I've got a jar that's about that big around and about that tall that's full of change, and I don't want to be part of the national change shortage, so I won't be making a trip to the bank this week. But it is a good way to do it. So at this point, I'm hoping to encourage you to ask questions. If you have concerns, did I not cover something that you wanted to be covered? I'm hoping to be with you and to answer those questions.
Awesome. Well, I know that was quick and brief. Ron could probably talk for 2 straight weeks about money and savings and retirement and legacy. So what we wanted to do and what really Ron set out to do was just to put something together that was simple, that was easy, that was basic. And I'm actually going to, if you guys got questions, I want you to throw that in around anything budgeting, saving, maybe even some legacy type questions. Throw those in the chat. And I'm also going to put a couple of resources. I'm going to link those into the chat. And you can click on those links and they'll come up and then you can download them or save them. But while I'm doing that, I just, I don't know if Ron or Brian or AZ, you guys are going to just maybe tell a personal story about budgeting and how in your life, maybe earlier in your life, whatever, where it's really, it's impacted you and set you on a different kind of a course.
Sure, I can jump in first. My wife still laughs because to this day she tells people 22 years ago when we were dating, I showed her what our budget would be for our first year of marriage. And, for us, it was always something that we wanted to make sure we were locked in on, that we were in agreement upon, that we were following biblical principles of stewardship that, Ron articulated so clearly. Thank you for that, Ron. That was fantastic. And just anecdotally looking back, it's funny, time value of money, but 22 years ago, I had a food and toiletries budget line item for about $150 for the two of us. And it actually worked back then. But Ron, I think that's probably not what you would recommend today, correct? Maybe a little bit more?
Maybe. And that's going to be all dependent on what's going on in your own life. Food, $150 a month. I mean, my gosh, that's pretty crazy.
Well, I mean, the Winco runs when you're just buying for two in 1999 are more reasonable for sure. But I did actually look at the actuals. We came in closer to about 190 to 180 in that range typically. So we did break the budget, unfortunately.
Well, you guys obviously are pretty skinny, so you didn't eat much. I do want to say that people are asking me all the time, but what if God, and I saw it in the chat, what if God has challenged me to give consistently? If God's saying something, God's enabling, God's caring, and He will cover you. I will say that I have seen people that are so godly minded and no earthly good, and God has told us to count the cost. And if you don't count the cost, I'm sorry, but you're missing God's will. Maybe He's called you to give, but you need to really be careful about what you're hearing. And I would say you need to, the old Jewish folks used to go to the wise men at the gates. So I'm back to asking you to go to people that have godly wisdom and how you deal with your money. And 39 years of helping people with their money, I got to tell you, I've seen some real crazy ideas and people that are barely making it now, and quite honestly are relying on the help of family and friends because they did not put away for their future selves. God really does challenge us to count the cost. You need to be responsible for your own finances in so many ways. And I know that sounds harsh, but honestly, I feel like some people miss the boat.
Good. We've got one question here was, can you mention the percentages again? I only got one of them. Hey, I apologize to you guys. I actually intended to upload the PowerPoints for this ahead of time so you could follow along, but they are now in the chat there, and so that slide will be in there, or the image of that slide, and so you'll see the complete breakdown of what Ron was mentioning in terms of general guidelines for percentages of categories in your finances. So you'll find those there. James is asking, after you have all the steps in place, how would you recommend diversification of long-term savings?
Oh my, that gets into a whole nother question and answer area. So it has to do with your own personal risk profile. But personally, I would see if you're younger, that you're going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 or 70% equities, 25 to 30% fixed income investments, and put it away. I also like a lot of real estate in people's investment profiles. We've seen that be very successful. I apologize. That is really getting into the weeds in terms of an individual customized plan for you. And that depends a lot on how you view risk. I would say that God has challenged us to put more money. If you go to the parable of the talents, that should lead you to an appropriate thought process about how to view risk.
That's good. Yeah, I figured that one was going to has the potential to be deep and wide based on circumstance and age and risk factors and just everything that goes into it. So, S. Jackson, I apologize, don't know the first name there, says, do I tithe on Social Security income I receive for my kids? Well, I'll answer that from a pastor's perspective, and then maybe let Ron or Brian or AZ just speak general wisdom into it also. But tithing is an obedience thing, and it's also a faith thing, and it's kind of where those two in your life are going to cross and meet. And for me in my house, I read the Word. And the way I understand and interpret the word is first fruits. So it's anything that comes into my household. And so you have Social Security checks that are coming into your household for you to use to provide for your kids. your kids' needs, your kids' they have things on that list that Ron said, their necessities and their needs. I would certainly tithe on it. But I would also take advantage of the opportunity to teach them, depending on how old your kids are, if they're aware of it and aware of the fact that you're getting this check and that it's going for their care and needs. Show them, talk to them, explain that you're doing that and that we're giving God the first portion. So that would be from my pastor's heart. I don't know if there's anything Ron or Brian or AZ you guys would add to that.
I could chime in a little bit on that because my kids are 8 and 4, and tithing for them has been a lesson that we've been working on for a while now. And one of the things that we like to have our kids do when they receive money or they earn money by doing little side jobs or whatnot here that are around the houses is actually write to God the thankfulness about that and kind of just teaching them about the position of the heart of, yes, it is a heart of obedience, but it's also a heart of worship and thankfulness for his provision. And so, and actually there was a comment about earlier that says, kind of ties into that, what if God tells you to give something that looks stupid? Says Aaron. And, I've been in that position before. And my wife and I have prayed and we both had peace about it. And we've done it a number of times where it made actually no logical sense, but God's math doesn't really add up. And so if he says, do this, with Abraham, he asked him to sacrifice his son Isaac. Of course, it was essentially a test of the action, whether he'd do it. And of course, at the very minute, then God provided the lamb to be sacrificed instead. But it was just like testing him, his obedience on it, and he was definitely after that. And so I would say, give boldly, and if God is putting something in your heart to do something like that, then do it, and you'll see the reward.
I want to add to that. I just heard a testimony today, actually, that of a lady that was challenged to go to Africa on a mission trip. She did not have the money, and she felt like the Lord was really calling her there. And she talked about how the Lord met her need at every step. She needed $200 for a visa. She needed another $150 for shots. She needed X amount of dollars to pay part of the ticket. And God met her at every need. So I don't want to seem like the budget is the be all and the end all. If God calls you to something, you need to be obedient, because he will meet that need. He definitely will. Yeah. What I find is that people have a tendency to give without actually really making sure that they're hearing the voice of the Lord. The Holy Spirit is pretty clear most of the time. And I have personally been called to give when I thought it was crazy. It was money that was meant for taxes. And I gave it, and the Lord brought in a check the day before taxes were due, and I was able to pay them. Now, it's been several years ago. I'm just trying to indicate that there are times when, as AZ said, if the Lord's calling you to do it, you need to be obedient.
Yeah, that's so good. I could tell some personal stories even in our life where we've done that. And if people were involved with my wife and I's prayers and decisions, they'd look at us, they'd be like, "You did what?" But we just felt like that's what the Lord had told us to do. And now I can tell you the story with a big smile on my face because you see it full circle. So, all right. So it says, is the 15% savings, so that recommended kind of percentage for savings, both for immediate needs versus long-time savings? For instance, like 10% retirement, 5% bank savings.
My intention is that is for your retirement. From my standpoint, I see that if people can save 15%, they can actually retire at an age. Right now, the average retirement age in the U.S. is 66 years old. you can retire at that age with a comfortable living. In other words, by that I mean the income that you had in your working years. If you give 15%, you should be able to have that into your retirement years without dipping into principal over the long term. If you need to adjust that so you have current reserves, by all means, get those established so that you're not dipping into credit cards or borrowing money to meet car repairs, to meet just basic things. There are things that come out, medical needs, those kinds of things that they just happen. And those are thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. An example being cancer. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine trying to face all those bills on a monthly basis. It just isn't going to happen. Those can run into hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is more of a reason to make sure you have good health insurance and understand your health insurance and how it works. When I talk about how money works, that's all part of it, and it's not easy. It takes some study. And I think that most people just go, oh, I've got health insurance. Yes, but how does it really work? Do I have a $3,000 out of pocket annually for myself or my family? Or is it $6,000? Or is it $10,000? Whatever that number, you need to know. And because things do happen. I had a friend not too long ago had an auto accident. And then on top of that, his wife had a heart attack. Well, guess what? They met their out-of-pocket maximum, which was $15,000, and they didn't think they would have to pay any of that. But that's what happened. So you need to know what your deductibles are and what your reserves really need to be. When I talk about deductibles, I'm serious. You need to have them put away.
Yeah. Any other questions out there? Real practical ones? Maybe if there's young couples on, if there's people that have had some missteps, miscues, kind of put a wheel off the road and trying to get back. I mean, anything. We want to be a resource to you guys. And while you're kind of thinking about that for a minute, or maybe typing those in, we're gonna. Just a couple of loose ends here. We're recording this webinar and we're going to put it back up on the website so you can come back to it if you didn't catch it all. And then maybe if you download the PowerPoints and want to come back to it and watch it, it'll be a great resource for you. Maybe you're here and your spouse couldn't be here. They can watch it. And in addition to that, we're also going to put some other resources up there. Ron has been gracious and got a kind of an annual spreadsheet that's up there, a little bit of a legacy. It's a basic but legacy resource, and we're always open to questions. I mean, you can email any one of us, email the church, call the church. We've got people from our giving culture team to stewardship to our pastors, elders. They want to help you. So if you ever have any needs, questions, fire those over to us. We've got a couple more that have come in here. It says, is overtime in work really worth it considering you get taxed more on your check?
Oh my, I'm sorry, guys. You're making more, so you have to pay more taxes. Get over it. You're making more money. Yes, it's worth it. A lot of people say, most people I know, if you're okay, so let's say you're making $100,000 a year between a couple, and all of a sudden you're at $140,000, and you move from the 22% federal tax back up to the 24%. Oh well, you're making money, and even if you have to pay 9% to the state of Oregon, you're now at 33%. Okay, that still means you get 77% into your pocket. I'm sorry, but that's just it's a misnomer of the. I used to work for a company called Freightliner Corporation, and the guys always out down there were always grousing about, oh, if I work all this overtime, I'm going to have to pay more in tax. Well, yeah, because you made more money. From my standpoint, if it's not impacting your family benefit, by that I mean you're taking away from your time from your family and to an extraordinary amount, take advantage of the overtime. Typically it's time and a half or double time. I'm sorry. If you're making more money, you pay more taxes. That's life. And that's probably pretty harsh, but that's my viewpoint.
Yeah, one other thing I'd like to add is sometimes people get confused by tax code too, and it's a progressive tax policy. So it doesn't retroactively go back to $1, for example, if you move into a higher tax bracket. It's just the incremental income that could potentially be taxed higher. So that's an important distinction that we should never be afraid of making more money because of a tax ramification, with maybe some very minor exceptions, right, Ron?
Yeah, I will say, I mean, not that long ago in my past, was in the 49% tax bracket. I was still making great money. And I was able to give more, do more for the Lord. I was able to help people. Anyway, yes, I agree, Brian, totally.
That should be all of our prayers. Lord, put me in a higher tax bracket.
Amen. And there are ways to mitigate that, guys. That's, again, back to understanding what money can do and how to mitigate that. Yeah. Anyway, I want to go back to the person with the Social Security question just real quick. Like, yes, I think you ought to tithe on that, but I got to be honest, if you're paying taxes on that, the word says to give to Caesar what that rendered unto Caesar, which is Caesar's. Those taxes are Caesar's. I don't, that's not God's. Jesus was real clear about that. So, and a lot of people I know tithe on the gross. Okay, go for it. God's not going to take that into, I would consider that to be actually tithe and offering, because you're giving on more. You're also tithing on what was Caesar's. So I don't have a problem with that. But it's more than just tithe. It's tithe and offering.
So we got one here. What do you do with big expenses like a roof or a home repair?
Wow. I'm be real. That's tough. Hopefully your asset can either through financing to pay for the loan repair or that you reserve for that. If you buy a roof within 5-10 years, you need a reserve for it. It's just that simple. And it's just that simple.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Roofs are expensive, and so are
they are.
HVAC systems if you got to upgrade that.
Yep.
What about saving tips for someone working as an independent contractor or side gigs? I have to put money aside for taxes and get ahead of the game on that. I've never done it before, so it's new to me.
I can speak to that if I may, because that's along my alley as well with two side businesses my wife and I run, and we have to diligently put money aside on an account that we absolutely do not touch, and just making sure that we actually put about 20% away into that account just for the potential tax ramifications that come with it, and it's just something that we have to do it, and we do it every time that we get a payment for something. Is we just put that money away, and so that way we don't get just so we don't put it into our operating account. And so, like Ron said earlier, give to Caesar what Caesar's, and then we give to God what is God's as well for that. So that would be, I would encourage you to start as soon as you can, even if you are already late into the game. Just start putting some money away for that, so that you can take care of that.
I want to take that one step farther, AC. If you look at the tax laws, they talk about giving that you need to pay in 100% of your last year's tax bill, or and it used to be 150 depending on your income. But if you keep track of your income and expenses, which I'm talking about budgeting, you can actually figure out, okay, I'm going to forecast, this is what my income is going to be for the year and what tax bracket I'm going to be for the year. And people need to take that seriously, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an independent contractor. Sometimes it's tough because income is very variable as an independent contractor for some people. I have chosen to myself make sure I pay 100% of my last year's tax bill unless I see a real significant decrease in my income in the current year. That way, I know that I won't get penalized. I may have to come up with more taxes, but I will not get penalized for the amount of taxes I have to pay.
Good. I was hoping this question would come up. I just don't know the demographic that's necessarily logged in, but any tips for newly marrieds that are learning how to combine bank accounts, expenses? And I'm going to add to the question, just, building that necessities list, what's a necessity and what's not, can be interesting with newlyweds because, they have different value systems when they come. So what would you tell a new couple sitting down for the first time with a budget, Ron?
It's God's finances. Put them together. My wife hates finances. I do a state of the family report on a monthly basis. I know another couple that the wife is really the one that's the person that's really more responsible for keeping track of things. And she still, and we've talked about how you have time to be able to sit down and talk about, okay, these are what we need to do. I would say you need to talk about them together. But if there's one person that's better suited to make sure that things are taken care of on a detailed basis, use that person to do that. As newlyweds, as priorities, it's just looking through the categories and what's needful or not. So anyway, that would be my intent. I apologize, guys. I need to take. I got something happening here that I need to deal with, but I will be right back.
Yeah.
And then I could chime in on a little bit on that because I remember that vividly on when Diane and I got married and how do we do all this? And what we actually did was we actually had two checking accounts, which we were both in it, but we had set, and we still do, a matter of fact, that we have one that is for our bills. So we call it our bills checking account. And then we have one that is expenses. And obviously they coincide with our budget so that we don't ever expend money that was allocated for bills, for our mortgage, our, all the utilities and whatnot. And like Ron was saying, it takes the better of the two to really work on that. And in some years, it was Diana who really just worked on it, and she managed it all, watched all the details. And in some in seasons, I was the one doing it. I'm currently the one doing it, of course, right now. But we really talk about all the purchases that we make, and I don't really make a decision, even if it's a $25 purchase, without really asking and talking to my wife about it. That's something I learned within, like, I don't know, probably 3-4 years with us being married, because she was spending money on the side, I was spending money on the side, and by the time like we were both done in a month, we're like, yikes. So anyway, it just became a habit of us just being able to talk to each other about even the smaller purchases.
Yeah, that's good. I'll add to some commentary, just having done a lot of pre-marriage counseling and then marriage counseling on the backside too, is, one is definitely, like Ron said, sit down and do it together, at least in terms of determining the budget. How much are we going to spend on clothes? How much are we going to spend on food? All those things. Do it together. That way you both have buy-in, both have input. Then assign the roles. And it's funny because like in our household, I do the finances, but my wife spends the money. I mean, she's the one that she pays the bills, she writes the checks, she buys the groceries. But I'm the one that then, reconciles it all. So, but just to determine the roles, define those roles, who's doing what. And then when you come through, whether you do it monthly or, every 2 weeks or every quarter, and you come back and review it together so you can both see what's working, what's not working, where the maybe the overages, where some categories you undershot or overshot. So So those would be some quick things, just recommendations I'd make.
As newlyweds, I would recommend you do it weekly. To this day, my wife and I do it weekly. Every Saturday after the kids have gone to bed, that's kind of what we do, is reconcile everything, look at the last 7 days, categorize everything, and we just look at it. So because it's a lot easier to make a quick correction on a week to week than it is 3 months later. And then you can kind of forecast your future that way a little bit better as well. But
awesome.
I need to go back just a little bit to the independent contractor. Unfortunately, as an independent contractor, you also have to take into account FICA and Medicare. So basically Social Security and Medicare. And that's 15.3% just for that deal alone. And most people don't understand that. Now, you can arrange yourself in a tax situation where you may be an S corporation. There's some ways so you don't have to pay. You're not privileged to pay FICA and Medicare on some of your wages. But you need to be aware that it's 15.3% on top of whatever federal tax or state income tax you have to take care of. So again, back to knowing what money must do, please get help, get tax help. Tax help is probably one of the major things that's going to help you succeed and not fail.
Perfect. Well, I don't want to, we're at the 8:01 mark here. If there's any other questions, we want to definitely be available to answer those, but I also don't want to belabor the 1 hour time commitment for the webinar. And so if you got something, put it in there. Give a few seconds for that. Otherwise, I want to say a huge thank you to you, Ron, for just the content, being willing to record that, being willing to be on here, and your commitment to Manna House, just being part of the team in this way. So,
Guys, our team, our Manna House entity is doing good things, and it's worth supporting. I'm very, very excited. I talk about leveraging your dollar. That's how I like to give, is to places that leverage your dollar. Manna House does that. They're reaching people I would not normally get to touch and need to. So I'm excited about supporting something that works in that fashion.
yeah, awesome. Also want to thank Brian and AZ for being a part, and appreciate it.
Yeah.
I want to say a quick word of prayer and just believe that some seeds were sown tonight, and you're going to mull over, and God's gonna breathe on those. So, Father, we just thank you for technology, Lord, that we can be here, there, and everywhere, Lord. We've learned that in this season, and we're thankful for it. And thank you for each one of those that logged on and they took a step of faith to say, this is an area I want to learn more. I want to grow more. I want to get my finances on track. I know that God has blessed me, and I want to set myself up for today, for tomorrow, and for eternity. So, Lord, we just thank you for each one. I pray that, Lord, that each person would take the nuggets that they gleaned, Lord, and they would go back to their families, their households, their finances. And Lord, even if we all just applied one little thing, Lord, made it tweak and move things forward, Lord, I believe that our lives would be different, Lord, and that you would breathe upon that, bring about increase, bring about multiplication. I want to pray for those maybe that are on here that, of course, they wouldn't speak up necessarily, that they're facing some financial challenges, Lord. I pray for divine wisdom. I pray that you would bring people alongside them that would help them to make course corrections, Lord. I pray that you'd open up the windows of heaven, Lord God, and pour out resources into their life, Lord. If they have maybe a mountain of a medical bill or just some sort of financial challenge in front of them, Lord, that you would come, Lord, that you would move the mountain, Lord, and you would move them forward, Lord. I pray that people would have faith for that, Lord. And just believing in this season, Lord, that we have so much to be thankful for, Lord, and that you've called us to be generous. You've called us to be good stewards. So, Lord, I just ask that you would guide us and direct us, Lord. We just thank you for your goodness to us, Lord, and we give you all the praise in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen.
And
Awesome. So Ron said, please know you can email me or call me, get support. Thank you so much. Good. So hopefully go back and click on those resources quickly, at least open those windows so they're open on your computer. And we'll also put those up on the web. Give us a few days here to package that all together. So Ron's good to see you. Brian, AZ.
thank
We'll
you.
see you soon. Bless you guys.